Snow fell steadily over the small town, muffling every sound as Christmas Eve descended in a soft hush. Lights glowed warmly from windows, and gentle laughter from nearby homes filtered through the cold air. It was just after midnight when Sister Mary, completing her late rounds at St. Anne's Hospital, noticed something unusual on the doorstep by the entrance. A small bundle wrapped in a faded quilt, resting quietly in the snow. She paused, heart beating faster as she approached. Sister Mary pulled back the edge of the blanket, revealing a newborn's peaceful face, his eyes closed tightly against the cold. A note was pinned carefully to the bundle. It read, "He cannot hear." For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The air was filled with the distant sound of bells and carols, though for this tiny soul, they were sounds that would remain forever unknown. As the reality of a note sank in, Sister Mary scooped him up, cradling him against her chest and rushing back into the warm hospital, where the glow of a single Christmas tree lit the hallway. Inside, she carefully examined the baby. He was a beautiful boy with a surprisingly calm expression, as if he'd accepted his silent world already. Sister Mary was captivated. For years, she had cared for countless abandoned infants, but something about this child, born without the sense of sound, touched her deeply. It seemed an almost silent miracle. The hospital staff, roused by the unexpected arrival, gathered around. Murmurs of sympathy and concern filled the room as they took in the baby's story. Martha, the head nurse, shook her head sadly. What will become of him? It's such a harsh world for a child like this. Sister Mary listened, but her focus was on the tiny bundle in her arms. She felt a strange but overwhelming sense of duty toward this child. The hospital board would need to be informed, but in her heart, she had already decided this child needed their love, not pity. Perhaps, she thought, he came here for a reason. The night passed in quiet anticipation. As dawn approached, she made her way to the chapel, the baby still cradled in her arms, and whispered a prayer for guidance. A question weighed heavily on her heart. Was it her duty to find him a new family, or was it her calling to keep him close and protect him? The morning brought a sense of excitement and concern as the townsfolk gathered in the church. News of the baby's arrival had spread quickly, stirring interest and compassion. Sister Mary, feeling both nervous and hopeful, stood by the church doors, her face calm but her mind racing. Father Joseph joined her, casting a skeptical glance at the baby nestled in her arms. "Mary," he began cautiously, "we're not prepared for this. A child with special needs requires more than what this town can give." Sister Mary, steadfast, replied, "He needs love, and we have that in abundance." But Father Joseph wasn't the only one with doubts. A small crowd formed, voices raising questions. Would the hospital be able to support him? Could the town bear the responsibility for a child who may never hear or speak? Sister Mary's resolve faltered briefly, feeling the weight of their doubts. Finally, an elderly woman named Edith, known for her sharp tongue and candid opinions, stepped forward. "Maybe this is a blessing," she said, silencing the crowd. "This child has come to us for a reason. But if he stays, it will be a burden we must all share." Her words, both a challenge and a call for unity, struck a chord. Sister Mary seized the moment. "This child represents our capacity for compassion, and I ask only that we open our hearts to him." As she spoke, she saw faces soften, the initial resistance yielding to something like hope. Yet, as the crowd dispersed, doubts lingered. She overheard hushed voices and noticed Father Joseph's worried gaze. The town was not yet convinced. Later at the hospital, Sister Mary met with the hospital board, who expressed similar concerns. "The hospital's resources are limited," the chairwoman began, "and caring for this child could stretch us thin. We may have to consider transferring him to a larger facility equipped to meet his needs." Sister Mary, though respectful, made her case with quiet resolve. "This child was left at our door, in our care. Let us not send him away so hastily." The meeting concluded without resolution, but Sister Mary was unshaken. She knew she would face resistance, Yet as she gazed at the baby's serene face, she felt certain he was meant to stay. That night, she made a silent promise to protect him, no matter the cost. Sister Mary knew that winning the town's support would take more than silent prayers. The hospital board's reluctance loomed large, and without a strong show of unity from the townsfolk, the baby's future in St. Anne's was far from secure. Determined to make her case, she requested to speak at the Christmas Eve Mass that evening, hoping the holiday spirit might soften their hearts. As the church filled with familiar faces, Sister Mary felt a surge of both nervousness and resolve. She stepped up to the altar, holding the baby close, and addressed the congregation. "Tonight, we celebrate the birth of one who came to bring light and hope," she began, her voice unwavering. "This little one, left on our doorstep, was born into silence, a world without the laughter, music, and words we hold dear. And yet, he has been given to us. Can we not offer him the love and warmth he deserves?" Her words hung in the air, stirring a mix of emotions across the crowd. She saw some nodding in agreement, but others remained cautious, their expressions unreadable. One man, a local businessman, stood up, his voice skeptical. "Sister, it's easy to say we should open our hearts, but who will shoulder the burden? What happens when the novelty fades, and we're left with a child who needs more than we can give?" Sister Mary felt her resolve strengthen. Love and compassion are burdens that should not be left to one person alone. This child's presence is a call for us to share that responsibility. Tonight, I ask you not only to consider the miracle of his arrival, but to ask yourselves, if we are not here for him, who will be? After Mass, people gathered around her, some offering quiet words of support, while others expressed doubts. But as Sister Mary looked at the baby, she saw the possibility of a future in his gentle, knowing eyes. A few days after Christmas, a young altar boy named Tommy lingered in the church after morning services. He had watched Sister Mary cradle the baby, mesmerized by the silent bond between them, and he felt inexplicably drawn to the child. Tommy approached Sister Mary one morning, his face shy but determined. Can I spend time with him?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Sister Mary smiled warmly. "Of course, Tommy. He could use a friend." From that day on, Tommy visited the baby every afternoon. He would sit close, talking softly, even though he knew the child couldn't hear him. One day, he instinctively raised his hands, making simple gestures as he spoke, trying to find a new way to reach him. To his amazement, the baby's eyes seemed to follow his movements, his gaze keen and focused. Encouraged, Tommy continued, repeating the gestures day after day. The connection between Tommy and the baby grew, and soon, even the hospital staff noticed. Sister Mary was both moved and astonished by the way Tommy's instinctive gestures seemed to create a language between them. One evening, as the two sat together, Sister Mary approached, watching quietly. Tommy noticed her and looked up, his face alight with excitement. "He understands me, Sister," Tommy whispered. "I know he does." Sister Mary knelt beside them, her heart swelling with hope. She placed a gentle hand on the baby's head and looked at Tommy with gratitude. In that moment, she knew that the baby's silent world wasn't empty. It was simply a different kind of language. And Tommy, in his pure, innocent way, had found the key to unlocking it. Their bond became a quiet miracle, a testament to the power of connection that went beyond words. And perhaps, a sign that this child had a place among them after all. As news of Tommy's connection with the baby spread, more people in town became intrigued. Some even started visiting the hospital to see the miracle child who responded to hand movements. However, not everyone was convinced. The hospital board remained concerned, viewing the baby's needs as a burden, and the initial enthusiasm in the community began to wane under practical considerations. During a meeting with the hospital board, Martha, the seasoned head nurse, expressed her concerns openly. "This child is endearing, yes, but what happens as he grows? Who will cover his medical needs, his education?" She cast a wary look at Sister Mary, adding, "You're asking too much of this town." Father Joseph, who had been quietly listening, nodded in agreement. "The truth is, This hospital wasn't built to handle cases like his. Sending him to a facility that can provide specialized care might be the most responsible choice. Sister Mary listened, feeling a mix of disappointment and frustration. But what about love and community? She countered. Are we so bound by limitations that we're willing to send him away? The meeting ended without resolution, and Sister Mary felt the weight of their doubts pressing on her shoulders. That evening, as she sat beside the sleeping child, she began to wonder if perhaps she was asking too much. Could she really expect the town to rally behind this child indefinitely? As the days passed, whispers spread in the town, and people who once felt inspired began to question whether the effort was sustainable. Despite this, Sister Mary's resolve remained. She continued to visit the baby with Tommy by her side, feeling that this bond, this small miracle, was worth every challenge. On Christmas morning, Sister Mary gathered her courage and brought the baby to the church for the holiday service, hoping the miracle of the season might open people's hearts again. The congregation buzzed with excitement and curiosity as she entered with the baby cradled in her arms, Tommy walking beside her. As the service progressed, Tommy moved closer to the baby, his hands once again creating gestures in the air. The baby's face lit up, watching Tommy's hands with an intensity that astonished the onlookers. A hush fell over the congregation as Tommy raised his hands, moving them in a way that seemed almost musical. For a few heartbeats, the entire church felt suspended in reverence, watching the exchange between the two. It was as if Tommy was creating his own silent hymn, and the baby, who could not hear, was moved by it in a way that transcended sound. Several members of the congregation began to cry quietly, moved by the simple beauty of the moment. Afterward, as people left the church, many paused to speak to Sister Mary. "I hadn't realized," whispered Edith, the elderly woman who had been both skeptical and supportive. Maybe he really is a gift." Others nodded, visibly affected, as they offered small words of encouragement and promises to help. The experience had softened even the harshest critics, who now saw the baby not as a burden, but as a blessing. For the first time since his arrival, Sister Mary felt a surge of hope that he might truly belong here. That evening, she reflected on the power of Tommy's connection with the baby. It was a language of the heart, a bridge between two worlds, reminding her that love, in its purest form, required no sound. In the glow of the church's candlelight, she offered a prayer of gratitude, feeling that perhaps the miracle she had been waiting for was already unfolding. In the days following Christmas, the impact of the silent miracle lingered. Many who had initially doubted Sister Mary's decision now began to offer help. Volunteers came forward to contribute in small but meaningful ways, bringing meals, donating clothes, and spending time with the baby. Tommy's connection with the child had sparked a new sense of purpose in the community, inspiring people to rethink what was possible. One afternoon, Edith approached Sister Mary, her face softened by an uncharacteristic smile. "I've talked with some of the other ladies," she said, a hint of pride in her voice. "We'd like to help arrange childcare so you don't bear all the burden alone. This little one deserves a family, even if that family looks a little different than most." Sister Mary felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you, Edith. This means more than you know." While some continued to question the long-term sustainability of keeping the baby in town, the generosity shown by others began to sway the hospital board. A few board members even suggested establishing a small fund for his care, funded by donations from the townsfolk. Despite the slow progress, Sister Mary felt a new optimism that the baby's place in their town could become a permanent one. Yet, Father Joseph remained a cautious figure in the background, watching these developments with a mix of concern and hope. His reluctance was born not out of a lack of love, but a deep fear that the town might ultimately fail the child if enthusiasm faded. Despite his doubts, he admired Sister Mary's unwavering dedication, and in his own way, he prayed for a solution. Father Joseph's worries eventually reached a breaking point. He asked Sister Mary to meet him in his office, where he spoke with a calm but serious tone. "Mary," he began, "I don't doubt your love for this child, nor your conviction. but love alone won't shield him from the challenges he will face as he grows. We are a small town with limited resources, and sometimes love means making difficult decisions. Sister Mary listened patiently, understanding the sincerity behind his words. "Father, I know you're concerned," she replied softly, "but this child has already changed us. Can't you see it? The town has come together in ways we never thought possible, and I believe that will continue." Father Joseph shook his head slightly, his expression troubled. People's hearts may be moved by a Christmas miracle, but what happens when it fades? You're risking so much, your position, your future. If we cannot sustain this, what will become of him? For a moment, silence filled the room. Sister Mary took a deep breath, struggling with her own doubts. But then she remembered the way Tommy had shown the baby a new kind of connection, one that defied conventional understanding. "Perhaps," she said finally, "this is an opportunity for us to grow, to discover a strength we didn't know we had. If we turn him away now, we lose more than just a child. We lose a part of ourselves." Father Joseph's eyes softened, though his concerns remained. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture of reluctant support. "Very well, Mary. If you're set on this path, I'll do my best to support you. But remember, you may be asking a great deal of this town and of yourself." As Sister Mary left his office, she felt a mixture of relief and determination. She knew that convincing Father Joseph had been a critical step, and while she respected his warnings, she felt that faith would guide them through. She whispered a prayer of gratitude, asking for continued strength to see this journey through. As winter settled deeper into the town, Sister Mary continued to witness small miracles of kindness and support from the townsfolk. Yet, the town remained divided. A hospital board meeting was scheduled to make a final decision on whether the baby should stay or be transferred to a larger facility that could more adequately meet his needs. Sister Mary knew that this decision would be pivotal. The night before the meeting, she gathered a few key supporters at the church, including Edith, Martha, and Tommy. "Tomorrow will determine his future here," she said solemnly. "If anyone has reservations, now is the time to speak." Edith stepped forward, her sharp eyes softened by emotion. "We've already come this far," she replied firmly. "No child should grow up without knowing love. If it means making adjustments to my life, then so be it." Martha nodded in agreement. This town has a way of taking care of its own, and whether they realize it or not, he's one of us now. Tommy, his small face filled with determination, added quietly, "He needs us. And I'll be his friend, no matter what." Sister Mary's heart swelled with gratitude as she looked at each of them. These people, brought together by a shared love for this child, represented the best of their town's spirit. Together, they made a pact to show up in full support at the board meeting, each one promising to speak from the heart. The next day, the hospital meeting room was packed, filled with faces both familiar and skeptical. Sister Mary took a deep breath as she stepped up to present her case, speaking about the baby's impact on the community and the bond he had formed with Tommy. Her words were passionate yet measured, appealing to the compassion of every person present. One by one, Edith, Martha, and even Tommy spoke in support. Tommy's heartfelt words, simple yet filled with genuine love, seemed to sway even the most doubtful members of the board. At last, the vote was called. Sister Mary held her breath as the members cast their votes. It was close, closer than she had anticipated, but in the end, the majority voted to allow the baby to stay. Relief flooded over her as the decision was made official. She looked around the room, seeing expressions of joy and quiet tears of happiness. They had done it. The baby would stay. The joy of the decision carried through the following days, with many people visiting Sister Mary to congratulate her on her determination and to offer their ongoing support. The baby, who had once been seen as a burden, was now viewed as a cherished member of the community. But the vote also had its share of consequences. Some townsfolk felt uneasy about the outcome, expressing concerns that the decision was swayed more by sentiment than practicality. Rumors circulated, and whispers of dissent found their way back to Sister Mary. While she tried to brush them off, she couldn't ignore the undercurrent of doubt that still lingered. The real test came when a series of financial challenges surfaced at the hospital. Resources were already stretched thin, and several board members began to question whether supporting the baby was financially responsible. The hospital chairwoman approached Sister Mary with the news, her tone apologetic but firm. "We've made a commitment to this child," Sister Mary reminded her, though she understood the strain. "And if sacrifices are needed, we will make them together." Determined to ease the burden, Sister Mary reached out to the community for help. She organized a small fundraising event at the church, encouraging people to donate or volunteer their time. The response was modest, but it was enough to cover immediate needs. Edith took charge of organizing ongoing donations, and a small committee was formed to ensure the baby's needs were met. Despite the resistance and challenges, Sister Mary found that the love and support of those who truly believed in this child's place within the community only grew stronger. The baby's presence had changed them all, and as she looked out over the crowd at the fundraising event, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had fought for him, and they would continue to do so. With a vote securing the baby's place in the town, Sister Mary and her supporters felt a new wave of optimism. The small but dedicated fundraising committee, led by Edith, worked tirelessly to ensure that resources were pooled to support the baby's immediate needs. Their efforts brought the town together in a way that hadn't been seen in years, fostering a spirit of unity and cooperation. Tommy's bond with the baby continued to grow, and he quickly became known around town as the baby's older brother. He would spend afternoons at the hospital, teaching the baby simple hand gestures and watching with pride as the baby responded. Their silent exchanges became a source of fascination and admiration, even for those who had once been doubtful. As the weeks passed, Sister Mary felt a growing sense of accomplishment and joy. She watched the baby thrive, surrounded by people who loved and cared for him. For her, this child had become a symbol of the town's resilience and ability to nurture something fragile and precious. But just as things seemed to be settling into place, a new challenge emerged. An official from the state social services visited the hospital one day, having heard about the baby's unusual story. He expressed concerns about the town's ability to provide adequate care and suggested that, despite the town's goodwill, the baby might be better off in a state facility. Sister Mary's heart sank, knowing that this development could jeopardize everything they had fought for. She pleaded her case to the official, explaining the baby's impact on the town and the measures they had put in place to ensure his well-being. But the official remained unconvinced, leaving Sister Mary feeling as if their fragile miracle might slip away. That night, she called a meeting with the town's core supporters, sharing her concerns. Together, they agreed to petition the state, gathering testimonials from townsfolk who had been touched by the baby's presence. Edith organized a letter-writing campaign, and Tommy made a heartfelt plea, writing a letter in simple, earnest words that captured the spirit of the community's commitment. In the days that followed, support for the baby poured in. Letters arrived from townspeople and even neighboring communities, vouching for the town's ability to care for him. Finally, the social services official relented, impressed by the outpouring support and willing to give the town a chance to prove itself. With relief and gratitude, Sister Mary and the townsfolk celebrated the baby's continued place among them. With the threat of removal behind them, Sister Mary focused on ensuring the baby's needs were met long-term. Inspired by Tommy's connection with the baby, she arranged for sign language classes to be offered to anyone in town who wanted to learn. The classes were held at the church, and much to her surprise, a large number of people showed up, eager to be part of the baby's life in a meaningful way. The classes brought together people from all walks of life, children who wanted to befriend the baby, parents who hoped to teach their kids the importance of compassion, and older townsfolk who simply wanted to give back. Martha, the head nurse who had once expressed doubts, joined the classes as well, her heart softened by the bond she saw forming between Tommy and the baby. Sister Mary watched with pride as the town grew around this silent miracle, finding new ways to communicate and connect. Tommy became something of a local hero, with his gentle patience and dedication inspiring everyone around him. Under his guidance, the baby's language skills began to flourish, and he responded with a joy that made each gesture feel like a celebration of life. Father Joseph, who had remained cautious throughout the journey, found himself quietly moved by the town's transformation. One evening, as he watched a group of children practicing their signs outside the church, he felt a warmth in his heart that he hadn't known in years. Walking over to Sister Mary, he acknowledged her unwavering faith and admitted, "Perhaps you were right all along, Mary. This child, he has truly brought out the best in us." Sister Mary smiled, grateful for his words. She knew that the baby had not only changed her, but had become a catalyst for change in everyone around him. The town was no longer divided. They had come together, united by a shared love and purpose. This was the new beginning she had prayed for, a fresh chapter where the town's compassion and resilience would thrive. With the baby now firmly rooted in the community, Sister Mary began planning for the future, considering ways the town could continue to support children with special needs. The baby had shown them the power of unity and had given the town a lasting gift, the knowledge that love could flourish in even the most unexpected places. The baby, once an abandoned soul with an uncertain future, had become a beloved part of the town. Over time, people stopped referring to him as the silent child and instead called him by the name Sister Mary had lovingly given him, Gabriel, a name that evoked hope and strength. Gabriel grew up surrounded by people who cherished him, each one playing a role in his life and helping him overcome challenges in ways they never anticipated. Under Tommy's patient guidance, Gabriel became fluent in sign language, able to communicate and express his thoughts with ease. The bond between Tommy and Gabriel remained one of the most enduring relationships in town, inspiring others to support and care for each other. Tommy, having grown up alongside Gabriel, became a young man whose compassion and dedication to helping others were admired by all. He often spoke of Gabriel as his brother in spirit, and the two shared a friendship that brought joy to those around them. As Gabriel's impact on the town grew, Sister Mary decided to expand the sign language classes into a broader community initiative. The classes became a symbol of inclusivity, attracting people from nearby towns and leading St. Anne's Hospital to create a permanent program for training staff and volunteers to assist children with special needs. Gabriel's legacy began to spread beyond the town's borders, creating a ripple effect that would benefit countless others. Sister Mary, now older and filled with a deep sense of fulfillment, reflected on how Gabriel's presence had transformed the community. She saw how he had brought out the best in everyone, strengthening the bonds between neighbors and encouraging a spirit of acceptance and kindness. Though she knew Gabriel's life would always hold certain challenges, she felt comforted by the network of love that surrounded him. One evening, as the town gathered at the church to celebrate Gabriel's 10th birthday, Sister Mary looked around at the faces filled with pride and affection. The once divided community had found unity in this silent miracle. The journey had been long and filled with trials, but as they sang together, their voices filling the air, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. As the night drew to a close, Tommy took Gabriel's hand and raised it, leading the crowd in a final gesture they had all learned in sign language. "Thank you." Gabriel's face lit up with joy, and the gesture was returned by every person in the room, a powerful testament to the love they shared. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed the story, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. It helps us keep bringing you stories like this one. We'd love to hear from you. What part of Gabriel's journey had the most impact on you? Was it the community's support, Tommy's bond with Gabriel, or maybe Sister Mary's unwavering faith? Let us know in the comments below, and we're always looking for fresh story ideas. What kinds of stories would you like to see next on the channel? Whether it's tales of resilience, unlikely friendships, or miraculous moments, drop your suggestions. We're excited to bring your ideas to life. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.